You know what brought you here. You know it in that quiet place where honesty lives, where you can't hide from yourself anymore. There's something you've been putting off. Maybe it's been days. Maybe it's been years. Maybe it's become such a familiar weight that you've almost forgotten what it feels like to not carry it. We tell ourselves stories about why we wait. We say we're busy. We say the timing isn't right. We say we'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week, and next week dissolves into someday, and someday is where dreams go to fade quietly into nothing. We've all been there. Every single one of us has stood at the edge of something we need to do and turned away. And the strange thing is, we know we're doing it. We're not blind to it. We watch ourselves walk away from the very things we claim to want. Let me tell you what procrastination really is, because it's not what you think. It's not laziness. God, if only it were that simple. If it were just laziness, we could fix it with discipline, with willpower, with a strong cup of coffee and a good night's sleep. But it's not that. It's never been that. When you look closely at the word itself, you find something beautiful and tragic. It comes from the Latin procrastinate, pro meaning forward, crastinus meaning belonging to tomorrow, to push toward tomorrow, to live perpetually in the space of not yet. And here's what nobody tells you. That space is comfortable. It's safe. In the land of not yet, you haven't failed. You haven't disappointed anyone. You're still full of potential, still carrying all those possibilities inside you, like seeds that haven't been planted. As long as you don't start, you don't have to face the possibility that you might not be good enough. Because that's what this is really about. Underneath all the excuses, beneath all the justified delays and rational explanations, there's fear. Just fear. Simple, ancient, human fear. The fear of failing. The fear of being seen failing. The fear of discovering that maybe, just maybe, you're not as capable as you hoped you were. I remember when I first understood this about myself, it was like someone had turned on a light in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark for years. All those times I'd put things off, all those important moments I'd let slip away. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because I cared too much. I cared so much that the thought of trying and falling short felt unbearable. Think about something big in your life right now. Something that matters. Maybe it's a dream you've had since you were young. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have. Maybe it's a change you know you need to make. Now feel what happens in your chest when you think about actually doing it. Not thinking about it, not planning it, but doing it. Actually beginning. There it is. That tightness, that resistance, that voice that says, not today. That voice isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. It's the same instinct that kept our ancestors alive. The one that said, don't leave the safety of the cave. But here's the tragedy. The cave is lonely. The cave is dark. And nothing grows in the cave. There's another piece to this puzzle. And it's one that surprised me when I discovered it. Perfectionism. I know. When you're someone who puts things off, you don't think of yourself as a perfectionist. Perfectionists get things done, right? They're the ones with their lives together, with their color-coded calendars and their perfect track records. But that's not what perfectionism really is. Perfectionism is the belief that there's a right way to do things. And if you can't do it that way, you shouldn't do it at all. It's all or nothing. It's the impossibly high bar that makes every small step feel inadequate. When you're a perfectionist, starting something means facing the gap between what you can do and what you think you should be able to do. And that gap feels like failure before you've even begun. So you wait. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect version of yourself. But here's what I've learned. That perfect moment never comes. That perfect version of yourself doesn't exist. understanding this, really understanding it, changes something. When you realize that your procrastination isn't a character flaw, but a protection mechanism, when you see that it's fear wearing the mask of laziness, you can start to work with it instead of against it. Let me share something that's helped me. It's simple, almost embarrassingly simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. 5 minutes. That's all. When there's something you've been avoiding, something that feels too big or too hard or too scary, commit to just 5 minutes. Not to finishing it, not to doing it perfectly, just 5 minutes of being present with it. 5 minutes of studying, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of whatever it is you've been putting off. And here's the magic. Once you start, once you break through that initial resistance, you'll usually keep going. Not always. Some days, 5 minutes is all you can manage, and that's okay too. But most of the time, you'll find that the hardest part was the starting. The rest is just continuation. There's another piece to this puzzle, and it's one that surprised me when I discovered it. Look at your list of things to do. The big, vague items that have been sitting there so long they've become part of the landscape. Work on that project. Get in shape. Figure out my life. These aren't tasks, they're territories. They're so big and undefined that your brain doesn't even know where to begin, so it chooses not to begin at all. Break them down. Make them small. Make them specific. Work on that project becomes write the first paragraph, or make an outline, or spend 10 minutes brainstorming ideas. Get in shape becomes do 5 push-ups, or walk around the block, or look up beginner workout videos. See what I mean? When you make the task small enough, when you make it concrete enough, it stops being this looming, threatening thing and becomes just a thing you can do. Here's something they don't tell you about motivation. It doesn't come before action. It comes after. We think we need to feel motivated before we can start, but it's the opposite. Starting creates motivation. Doing creates momentum. That first small win, no matter how tiny, it changes something in you. It reminds you that you can, that you're capable, that you're not stuck. Sometimes I start with the easiest thing on my list, just to get moving. There are people who will tell you to always tackle the hardest thing first, to eat the frog, to get the worst over with. And maybe that works for them. But I've found that sometimes we need that easy win. We need to remind ourselves what completion feels like. We need to prove to ourselves that we can still finish things. And when we do finish something, even something small, there's this rush, this moment of, I did that. I actually did that. And that feeling wants to perpetuate itself. It wants to grow. Suddenly, the next task doesn't seem quite as impossible. Suddenly, you have momentum. You're no longer pushing against infinite resistance. You're moving. But let's be honest about something. This isn't going to be a permanent fix. There isn't one. Procrastination isn't something you cure once and never deal with again. It's something you manage. It's something you work with. It's a pattern that will come back again and again in different forms around different tasks. And that's okay. That's human. What changes is how quickly you recognize it. What changes is how you respond when you catch yourself avoiding something. Instead of spiraling into shame, instead of beating yourself up for being lazy or undisciplined, you can pause. You can ask, what am I afraid of here? What's the fear underneath this resistance? Sometimes the fear is obvious. Sometimes it's buried. Sometimes you're afraid of failing. Sometimes you're afraid of succeeding and what that success might demand of you. Sometimes you're afraid of being seen, of being judged, of being found wanting. Sometimes you're afraid of commitment, of choosing one path and closing off others. Sometimes you're afraid of finding out that the thing you've been dreaming about isn't what you thought it would be. All of these fears are valid. All of them make sense. But here's the question. Is the fear protecting you, or is it imprisoning you? Is it keeping you safe, or is it keeping you small? I think about all the things I didn't do because I was afraid. All the chances I didn't take, the words I didn't say, the dreams I didn't chase. And the thing that haunts me isn't the failures. It's the empty space spaces where something could have been. It's the what-ifs that I'll never get to answer because I never even tried. You don't get to know how things will turn out. That's the hardest part. You can't see the end from the beginning. You can't guarantee success. You can't protect yourself from disappointment or failure or pain. All you can do is start. All you can do is take that first step, and then the next one, and then the next one, without knowing where they'll lead. And that's terrifying. It really is. I'm not going to tell you it isn't. I'm not going to sell you some fantasy where if you just believe in yourself enough, everything will work out perfectly. That's not how life works. Sometimes you try, and it doesn't work out. Sometimes you fail. Sometimes you put in the effort, and you still come up short. But here's what else is true. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you try, and you discover you were more capable than you thought. Sometimes you start something scared and uncertain, and somewhere along the way, you find your footing. Sometimes the thing you were avoiding becomes the thing that changes everything. And even when it doesn't work out the way you hoped, even when you do fail, you learn something. You grow. You prove to yourself that you can survive trying, that failure isn't death, that disappointment isn't the end. You discover that you're more resilient than you gave yourself credit for. Every time you push through the resistance, every time you start, despite the fear, you're building something. You're building trust with yourself. You're proving that you're someone who shows up, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when you don't feel ready. And that trust, that relationship with yourself, it's the foundation everything else is built on. When you can trust yourself to try, even when you're afraid, even when success isn't guaranteed, everything changes. You stop being at war with yourself. You stop seeing your fear as the enemy and start seeing it as information, as something to acknowledge and work with, not something to be ruled by. I want you to think about something you've been putting off. Just one thing. Not everything on your list. Not every dream you've deferred. Just one thing that matters to you. Something that keeps coming back to your mind in quiet moments. Something that whispers, what if? Now I want you to imagine doing it. Not perfectly, not successfully, just doing it. Actually beginning. What would that first step look like? Not the 10th step, not the final result, just the very first thing you would need to do to start. It's smaller than you think, isn't it? When you strip away all the fear and the overthinking and the impossible expectations, the actual first step is usually quite small. Open a document, send an email, make a phone call, do 5 minutes of research. It's not climbing a mountain, it's taking one step. And maybe that one step leads nowhere. Maybe it doesn't work out, but maybe, just maybe, it leads to another step, and another. And maybe 6 months from now, you look back and realize that the thing you were so afraid to start has become part of your life. That the weight you carried for so long has transformed into something real and tangible. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you try and it's not what you thought. Maybe you start and then stop. Maybe you struggle. Maybe it's harder than you hoped. But you'll know. You'll have the answer instead of the question. You'll have the experience instead of the wondering. And there's freedom in that too. Because here's the secret they don't tell you. The peace doesn't come from succeeding. It comes from trying. It comes from no longer being at war with yourself. It comes from aligning your actions with your intentions, even imperfectly. It comes from becoming someone who starts things, who faces fears, who chooses movement over stagnation. This is your one life. These are your days. And every day you wait is a day you're choosing the safety of the shore over the possibility of the water. I'm not saying you need to be reckless. I'm not saying you should leap without looking. But I am saying that at some point, you have to get your feet wet. You have to wade in. You have to start. Not someday, Not when you're ready, not when the circumstances are perfect. Now, today, this moment, with all your fear and doubt and imperfection, with all your uncertainty and questions. You start where you are, with what you have, as who you are. And maybe it won't be perfect. Maybe it won't even be good at first, but it will be real. It will be yours. It will be movement instead of stillness, action instead of waiting, living instead of preparing to live. The weight you've been carrying, the thing you've been putting off, it's not going to get lighter on its own. It's not going to be easier tomorrow or next week or next year. But you can decide right now to set it down, or better yet, to finally pick it up and do something with it. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes with that thing you've been avoiding. Not to finish it, not to be perfect at it. Just 5 minutes of showing up. 5 minutes of proving to yourself that you can, that you're not stuck, that you're ready to start becoming the person who does the thing instead of the person who wishes they did. The fear won't disappear, but you can move forward anyway. The doubt won't vanish, but you can act despite it. The possibility of failure will always be there, but so will the possibility of everything else. So, start, wherever you are, whatever time it is, whatever circumstance you're in. Start. Take that first step. Open that document. Make that call. Do that 5 minutes. And then see where it leads. See what becomes possible when you stop preparing to begin and actually begin. Your life is waiting, not for you to be perfect, not for you to be ready, just for you to start. So, start.